and services, causing qualified individuals with transferable skills to leave some jobs and move to others. What's frictional unemployment then? That is what we classify job leavers as. So when I left Notre Dame, I was a job leaver, and for that time period in summer, I was frictionally unemployed. Okay? So make a mental note, that's what frictional unemployment is. Structural unemployment. Yes?
No, there's that one unemployment I remember that's like, you don't work over the summer, seasonal unemployment.
Yes.
Is that like if you teach summer school, that would count?
You mean because well, I guess if teaching summer school was my only job, my only source of income, then the other 9 months of the year, I would be considered seasonally unemployed.
If you did school year and it's
No.
it's still seasonally unemployed.
I mean, you can make that argument, but it's not counted that way. It's saying, okay, right now, in February, I'm seasonally unemployed because I do teach summer school, but right now I'm not. That's a silly argument. So that's one kind of unemployment, right? Frictional unemployment, one way, maybe a silly way to remember that, show me your eyes, is think back to Mr. Gideon having friction at his old job. There was friction.
Because it made you leave.
That's right. I was not happy. I was not happy. As a matter of fact, right before I left, I gave him a piece of my mind. I wrote up a list of things that they should do better, and I read it to the principal. And she was like, "Can I have that letter?" I said, "Oh no, can't have that." She was really mad. I have a copy of it somewhere, but I won't show it. All right, so it's just one way to, a silly way to remember it. Frictional unemployment, all right, for the job leaver, those two things go together. Okay. Now, what about structural unemployment? Structural unemployment says it's unemployment due to structural changes in the economy that eliminate some jobs and create other jobs. Most economists argue that structural unemployment is largely the consequence of automation. So this goes to Victor's point, technology, okay? If they invent a robot that can fold clothes so that now they don't need you, they don't need Victor at Abercrombie & Fitch to fold clothes. And so I don't think he's ever had that job, I'm just, picking on him right now. Or have you? Have you ever worked at Abercrombie? Seriously? Don't. Yeah. But I've heard he's a legendary clothes folder. Right? So, but no matter how good Victor might be at folding clothes, they invent a robot to do that, and then they fire him. That's an example of structural unemployment. All right? Some people call it technological unemployment. Structural unemployment. The structure of the job market or the workplace changed, so they had to lay them off. Natural unemployment. All right? This is something broader. All unemployment, all the other types of unemployment kind of fit under this category of, well, should we have some unemployment? Is it good or healthy to have some unemployment? I would say yes, and just about all economists would. Because otherwise you'd have people, if we said, gosh, our goal is to have zero unemployment, to never ever have people unemployed that want to have a job, then you'd basically be saying, all right, because we never want to break that streak of 0%, everyone needs to stay at their jobs forever, no matter how much you hate who you work for. I'm not trying to imply that I hated the people I work for. I don't hate people. But I did strongly dislike them. All right? Somebody like that was going to be stuck in that kind of a job. That's why economists say it's good to have a little bit of unemployment. It's not communism, no. But to have a little bit of frictional unemployment. You're saying if we ensure that everybody has a job, that's definitely a facet of communism. All right, but that's not the only requirement that you have. You have state-mandated assignments. That's a little more to one extreme. Okay, but that's one of the claims of communism, that we'll ensure that everybody has a job. But we're most likely going to have to tell you what job you're going to work, and if you don't like it, oh well, right? We tell Victor, no, you're a fabulous clothes folder, and that's what you're going to do for the next 30 years. And you're like, what? Oh well. It's kind of like, what was that movie with the bees? Bee Movie. You ever see Bee Movie? Right? And they're like, they're giving them a tour of the hive once they get old enough. to become active members of the hive.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the movie, then you don't know what we're talking about. I'm not going to say anything. And they're like, so you could be, be a clothes folder for the next 30 years or whenever you die. Or you could be somebody that, gets the last drop of honey off of each batch that gets produced for the next 30 years. I'm like, gosh, that's like really repetitive. But for bees, it's big time, right? That's kind of like communism, really, if you look at that movie, where they're saying this is the job, you can request what you want. In communism, typically you can't even do that. They tell you this is what you're going to do, this is how much you're going to make, all right, this is what prices people can charge. Anyway. Natural unemployment is this idea that you can have a little bit and it's okay, right? Now, write this down. Our historical average, which we think is pretty healthy in this country for inflation, was what? 4%. Same thing for unemployment, typically. If we could get down to about 4 or 5% unemployment, we would say we're pretty healthy. A little lower than that, that would be great, all right? But we're not even close to that right now. We're more than double that. As a matter of fact, Ben Bernanke this morning, who's appearing before the House, said that although it's great that the unemployment rate just took a dip, we can't expect it to get down to what we would call a normal or natural unemployment rate for at least the next couple of years. Because we're not seeing many signs of employers wanting to expand their payrolls. Okay? But if you're going to throw a number out there, most people would say 4 to 5%. About 4% unemployment is a pretty healthy number, and that's what we would consider for this country natural unemployment. And that's also known as full employment. So, not too long from now, you're going to be drawing something. Pick up your boards and copy me right now. I'm going to show you what I mean. How do I expand this code? Oh, there we go. I'm going to say, graph a picture of the economy. And I don't expect you to understand what this means right now. But you're just going to have your hand do it. And eventually your brain will make sense of it some other day. And a picture of an economy will have a graph that starts like this. So go ahead and draw that on your board. All right? And when we look at prices for all stuff, we no longer just use this term price. We call it price level. So that'll be the label over here, price level. All right? And then you're in the habit of, if you're going to be graphing the market for something, writing quantity down there. But now we're not looking at individual markets, we're looking at the entire economy. So we say quantity of all stuff, which is real GDP. So those become our new labels if we're showing a graph that's a picture of an entire economy. And then this curve is normally which curve? The supply curve or the demand curve? Supply. Good. But we give this a new label, which is known as short-run aggregate supply. And we give the sub 1, just like we have before. This becomes, which curve is it? Demand. But since it's all demand for all stuff, we call that aggregate demand. But this is short-run supply of all stuff included in GDP. The long-run curve looks like this, and it's abbreviated LRAS, which means long-run aggregate supply, and this is where our potential is. This is where our potential is. The reason I'm exposing this to you right now is because this is where you find U sub n, which is natural unemployment, or full employment, F sub e. Same thing. Wherever these two curves cross, wherever that equilibrium point is where we are today. All right? And this would be a healthy picture, but that's not where we are today. Today we look more like this. Officially the recession is over, but there are some signs that are like recessions, and one of them is that this point where the two curves cross, where SORAS AD cross is below, our unemployment or our employment currently is below the natural place, which is over here, which is about 3%, 4%, 4% unemployment. But full employment and natural unemployment are pretty much considered the same thing, all right? Full employment does not mean 0% unemployment. It means about 4% unemployment, okay? That's what full employment means, yeah.
But you said bottom is less right now.
What's that?
That one's less right now.
Say that again?
That one, the bottom graph right there is less right now.
Yeah.
Are we going about higher unemployment?
Good question. If we're going this direction for our potential is, that means less jobs and more unemployment. And less production. There's a lot of stuff that's tied together. Less income too. But we'll come back to this when we go more in depth on the graph. Now at this point, obviously, we're not going to have a quiz. But we will definitely then have a quiz next class on, well, if you go to Blackboard, you'll see. I'll show you the next class. If you haven't already taken a look, we're a little behind. We've got to do chapter 6. All right? But you already had the homework of completing reading chapter 6. I'm going to go fast next class. All right? But take a look at your homework. Do the chapter 5 assignment on Blackboard now. Anybody have problems with doing the chapter 1 assignment? It was due at 8 a.m. this morning. This one will be due 8 a.m. the next time we meet. All right, it'll be 8 a.m. Friday. It's always due 8 a.m. the class day we meet today.